everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Female Film Critics panel. And this week, I'm very excited. I have one of the fellow female film critics in Utah here with me. This is very exciting. Jennifer Wardell is here. And Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so since this is your first time on the show, we'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you developed your love of film and got started writing reviews.
My name is, like I said, Jennifer Wardell. I actually got started into reviews when I was working for a little local paper, and the editor was like, "Oh, hey, we should have reviews. We should bring someone in." And then I'm like, "Don't bring someone in, give it to me." And so I had to do a test review. And I was like, and so I became their critic. And then when they folded, I went on to other papers.
So were you working at this outlet as a journalist?
I was their arts reporter, so
okay,
kind of a natural slide over.
Mm-hmm. Is that your education background, is in journalism?
Yes, actually, the thing that helps me, I think, more in reviewing is I'm an English lit major.
Okay.
Which people tease a lot, but it's basically like massive hardcore analysis training. Like take this, what's going on here, what works, what doesn't, 3,000 words, go.
Yeah. Very good. Well, you have written novels, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did that all happen? What's your story there?
The novels thing actually novels didn't come first, but the desire to write fiction came first. I wanted to write stories ever since I was a little kid. My mom still has a book I made in kindergarten.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes I'm like, I guess in like high school, sort of discovered, oh, hey, like journalism is also cool. Because I don't know if it's the ADHD or just like my deep enthusiasm for movies and stuff, but I really love telling people about stuff. And really, for me, the essence of like, because I've never been like an investigative reporter, let's get to the truth. I hear about like a cool art exhibit or a cool play or a cool movie, and I want to tell as many people as humanly possible about this cool thing. And journalism is basically a fantastic gateway for that.
Yeah. So would you describe yourself as a pantser or plotter when you write for your books?
Somewhere in the middle. Like I need to have like a loose structure, start veering dramatically sideways, or I spend like 2,000 words on this thing that does not need 2,000.
Yeah.
So I have a sort of, by this point, I have to, or like within this section, I have to deal with this basic plot point in the next section. And sometimes I'll have like subplot points I do, but it's really just sort of a loose guideline to keep me from driving up.
So one of your books is the Fairy Godmothers. So that sounds like a fun take on Cinderella.
What? Sorry.
That sounds like a fun take on Cinderella.
Yes. I can't be sure that it's where it started, but I was watching my story in my head for how that happened is I was watching the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella, the Disney one. And I have this thing sometimes where like I'll make up little songs in my head. And during it, I know like Whitney Houston was a very glamorous fairy godmother, but during it I started making up a song about how stressful it is to be a fairy godmother. And how, like keeping up with and stuff. And so that actually was the genesis of, oh, hey, I wonder, how do fairy godmothers work? Why are they all out there doing their thing? And I also read a lot of Terry Pratchett. So that whole, what is the underlying structure that keeps these fantasy mechanisms going? And so fairy godmothers, they sort of evolved in sort of like a consulting firm. Like, if you're like a duke or a duchess and you have a son who's who really needs to settle down but isn't doing it. And you want him to hook up with a nice girl who will look good at parties. You call up the local fairy godmothers and say, do you have any poor, beautiful, deserving girls who you could like give a makeover to and shove up my son at the next party? And they're like, sure. Or wealthy people with their daughters. They could dress them up and send them on their own, but if you get a fairy godmother to do it, it just looks so much better with the ability.
Like a fairy tale stylist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like the employee, and so the fairy godmothers are the employees who are sent out on the individual cases. And this is a story of one fairy godmother and a job that goes very, very wrong.
That sounds really cute. That sounds fun. So what would you say is the biggest challenge for writing fiction and then also writing like the reviews, nonfiction? What do you think makes them challenging?
Well, for me, at least fiction is much harder because with reviews, you're just trying to accurate or like articles and stuff, you're trying to communicate what's already there. So it's sort of like using words to draw a picture of what you see in front of you. And so you can sort of hold up the comparative, hey, does this look about, but when you're writing a novel, you're sort of like manifesting a whole world. And you're not just giving your opinion on it, you're needing to recreate it for the person who's reading it. And there's a lot more moving parts there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, do you remember the like early films that really inspired you, that got you kind of interested in film?
I think Disney kind of, because, and it's not even Disney, I've always been a fairy tale nerd. And I've been an adaptations nerd, and Disney's adaptations of fairy tales. And so it's like,
yeah, that's true.
Big confluence of,
especially during that Renaissance time.
Yes, absolutely.
That we grew up in.
It's funny. My family didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't get to see a lot of movies in theaters. And Beauty and the Beast has always been a big story for me. But the thing I remember most about Disney's Beauty and the Beast is we went as a whole family, and my youngest brother, who is a complete brat. One of my favorite memories of him as a kid is after the movie had ended and the lights got up, he was still sitting in the seat, just sobbing, tears streaming down his face, wailing, "They killed the Beast!" I mean, like, and he would not buy it. That little long-haired prince guy it was not the Beast. Could not have been the Beast.
Yeah.
And so that sort of became the genesis of my Beast Charming. Sort of a version of Beauty and the Beast that wasn't about change, but was about accepting and loving the Beast as they are.
Yeah.
And so versions of fairy tales have always been like catnip for me. So
well, that's what's so moving about the whole story of Beauty and the Beast, is that beauty is found within, and that they grew to love each other, and who could ever grow to love a beast? It's like, it's a beautiful story.
And no, it totally is. But the version of the story, and it's sort of the Shrek thing, the ogre, because the beauty is there. Beauty isn't dependent on what your face looks like. So I don't know. It's just yeah. The great thing about fairy tales is all these versions of the story, all touching on different areas, are all totally valid.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about, I guess, the state of film, the film industry, would you say you're optimistic or pessimistic right now with I mean, we're kind of building back off of COVID. We're in the age of the IP where everything has to be connected. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's looking, are you feeling optimistic or discouraged?
Okay. That's a complicated question.
Yeah.
I feel I'm going to be watching a lot more A24 movies in the future.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough room in Hollywood right now for weirdness, for difference.
Mm-hmm.
Or I love like Dungeons and Dragons, but it didn't make enough money.
Yeah, it's true.
Take that as a lesson.
But then you mean you have something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is really weird, doing pretty well for what it was, and then winning Best Picture. And you look at the last like 4 Best Picture winners, they've all been kind of small, quirky movies, beating out your Avatars and your bigger. I mean, and even like Avatar in a way is kind of a weird movie.
Yes, but is it a good weird movie?
I really enjoyed it, but yeah, I mean, and you have something like Across the Spider-Verse, which I think is like the best that we can kind of hope for, to get something so ambitious artistically from an IP project that is pretty weird. Like it is affirming that something that's so out there and crazy could do so well, but then on the other hand, there's just so much that's just like blah, that's bland, and that's frustrating too.
See, there's a couple different things. One,
yeah.
I love weird movies, but for a lot of the public, there's Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of weird, and then there's like a ghost story kind of weird, that Casey Affleck movie from several years.
Mm-hmm,
There's a whole subset of movies that the public is like, oh, that's awards bait. It's so weird. I don't care. I'm not going to watch it. And there's a place for that in Hollywood, and it's very important.
Yeah.
But the thing that I worry about most is the smaller, quirkier family movies.
Yeah.
Quirky movies that aren't just completely whacked out, but are like the kind of things that don't do well in the box office, but some kid watches at like 12 and becomes their favorite movie, and 20 years from now they become a filmmaker, and they cite this weird movie set.
Like I think that a good example of that is Marcel the Shell.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There still needs to be room. The thing I worry about most is the Marcels. Because honestly, when I first heard about Marcel, I'm like, oh, that's going to be some weird indie twee. I initially was not interested in. I just thought it was some weird indie thing. And then my sister remembered the YouTube videos from several years ago and said, they're actually pretty cute. And so I tried it and I loved it. But I made the mistake of thinking that the world was in between the big blockbuster and the really strange little indie things that don't really care about being likable. And both of those categories need to exist. So maybe we could do with fewer blockbusters. But there also needs to be that middle category.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm maybe more worried about.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. And I was very optimistic when the streamers kind of got started, because I was like, oh, this will be a place where all of those can really thrive. And so it's been very discouraging the last year to see like what HBO Max did and what Disney Plus did. I mean, a little movie like Timmy Failure to just have, it's gone. Nobody will ever get to see it anymore. And that movie was so good and so sweet. And so now I'm feeling really bummed out about it, that people can work hard for years on films and then they're just gone. Like both of the Stargirl movies, especially the second one, was so good. And I think it had the same writer director, and her work is just gone. And I can't imagine what that would be like. It's just terrible.
Honestly, that's the thing to be more really terrified about.
Yeah.
What's happening in the streamings is that's really more the story of the Library of Alexandria. That's happening in streamers right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like, well, I think people are noticing, but there's nothing we can really do to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's so discouraging.
Yeah. And I know that it was always the case the movies went out of print. That it's not like that's new, but usually you knew that it was going to come back eventually, and then you'd get a chance to buy it like in the Disney Vault or whatever. And usually it wasn't something that just came out like 6 months ago.
And also with physical copies, there was usually a copy out there somewhere.
Yeah, the library or someplace
the
like that.
The library had it, you get it off of eBay. And if you loved it enough, you bought it early, so that when it did go out of print, even if it wasn't anymore, you'd already bought it, and so you had it in your collection. Honestly, as you can see, I am still a big believer in physical media.
Yeah, like it's something like Timmy Failure, we never even had that option.
No.
And now it's just gone, which makes me really sad. So I'm feeling more pessimistic than I was even last year. I was feeling, I think, I was feeling more optimistic last year, but yeah, it's concerning. And I mean that they just don't even seem to care about
they're just properties. There's no, they're possessions, they're playing chips.
I get it. It's not friends business, it's show business. I understand that, but there was still a certain degree of integrity that in some of these studios in the past, that there were things they weren't going to do, and now it's just out the window.
And also they've forgotten the concept of like brand loyalty.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, at least I hope that if there was a streamer that was like, yes, we know these properties aren't making us money, but we care enough about the people who are using our service to still make them available to them, because that's kind of what we promised to do. That alone would make that streamer seem so ethical in comparison to everybody else right now.
Yeah.
I personally would be like, okay, here's my money. I want
to. True. Yeah. I mean, it almost makes me feel better about services like Tubi and Play-Doh and things like that. That I know there's
one of the most ethical things.
Yeah.
Streaming right now.
I agree. Yeah. Well, so how did you feel in general about 2022 as far as movies? Do you think it was a strong year for movies or not as good?
I'm not very good at generalities because like Marvel in general
was weak.
Yes. There was a whole downward trend.
There was just too much of it. Like I was on the Marvel train for as far as keeping up with everything for a long time. And then it was just like, I can't watch all these shows. I don't have the time.
Caring about making good movies. how can we reshuffle these characters into a new property? And they don't even pay attention to their own continuity. They don't bother with continuity. Like,
yeah.
favorite Marvel properties of the last several years was Shang-Chi. I was delighted with Shang-Chi, but I think part of the reason it was allowed to be that is Disney didn't care about it.
Right.
Disney didn't think it was going to do anything, so they just kind of left it to the director to go, okay, do what you want with this. And he went, maybe I should make a movie with a plot and likable characters.
And Tony Leung, so good.
Very cool.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I was very underwhelmed by pretty much every. I mean, gosh, aside from Spider-Verse, I'm trying to think of when. I mean, I did like Guardians 3 pretty good. That was good.
I wept like a child. It was
yeah. I think you were sitting next to me for that one.
You see, it was a scream, and I just started bawling like a baby. So I dove over the side of the chair. I was on the floor weeping.
Yeah.
But I was less visible.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, no, it was, but because I wasn't a big fan of the second Guardians.
Oh, it was weaker.
Love that. And so it had something to kind of win me over, but it did.
But part of that, though, I feel now, I don't know if Gunn's really going to save the DCU like DC thinks he is. You could feel all through Guardians 3 how much James Gunn loved them and loved there's and had the he went in there with such a specific mission. And he had specific, and he wanted to tell this story so hard.
Yeah.
Feel it in every section of the movie. And I read somewhere, and I think it's really true that particularly in that last one, Guardians did what Avengers never did. In that this is a group of random people who genuinely became a family.
Mm-hmm.
And you could feel that. And that's what we really wanted out of Marvel for so long and never got.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that not only was it doing a lot of Guardians feelings, but it was a lot of some of the other things we've maybe mourned the absence of in the MCU that sort of rose up and added to the experience.
Yeah. I think that there is truth to that. I mean, we were supposed to feel in Infinity War, just feel this like devastation. You know, we're supposed to be on the floor like you're talking about. And I didn't. I just it felt so phony to me. And then I think Endgame actually really worked. So that like to me, the combo of the two, I like as its own movie. But if I was just dividing it up, I was like, they really expected us to believe, first of all, that all these characters were gone, which of course they're not. And they expected us to feel that family at the end of Infinity War. And I just didn't. And, but I did feel in Endgame, I did feel the moments with Tony and, you know, with some of those moments much more authentically than I felt in Infinity War. But that's just me.
Well, the thing is that by the time of Infinity War, the most we'd ever gotten from these people was coworkers.
Yeah.
Of us who've had coworkers, if so half of them were to dissolve, we wouldn't be all that sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have done, I think, a pretty good job of developing that relationship between Tony and Cap, and the different ideological differences between the two of them, and certainly characters that we felt for. But yeah, it all just, again, to me at least, Infinity War, it felt phony. It didn't feel authentic like in Volume 3.
But like, say, between Tony and Cap, really the only thing the Marvel movies paid attention to were those ideological differences.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really bother establishing a friendship that would make those ideological differences really interesting.
Yeah.
When you have ideological differences with a coworker who you're a friend about, you just mostly don't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel a fissure because movies had never really bothered creating something that got broken.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that. Yeah. I mean, they try to with like things like with Bucky and kind of the complicated relationship that Cap has with Bucky, and then what happens with Tony's dad and Bucky, and so they try to kind of make it more personal in that way. But yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's part of the reason why it kind of fell flat for me as far as Infinity War. And it just, I could personally think they should have had characters. I personally think they should have had more of just like the old characters get zapped, because if you're there, nobody believed that Black Panther was really gone. You know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. Of course he's coming back. Like, they just made it so, I don't know. Maybe I'm just too analytical and I didn't get caught up in the moment, but
okay.
But like, if it had been Cap, that's like semi-believable.
The thing is, that's symptomatic of, I think, a larger issue with the MCU as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
With Cap, because we looked at contracts. How many contracts did they have left?
Yeah.
It's by, I think, both Infinity War and Endgame, and this is a joke, but my lawyer says I'm not allowed to talk about it. Well, my doctor says I'm not allowed to talk about Endgame. It's not good for my blood pressure.
Yeah. Right.
But and even now, the MCU is formula. Every movie they make, or at least nearly every movie they make, but the majority of movies are just somebody plugs characters into an algorithm. They go, okay, what exciting new concept are we going to bring up? What arc are we trying to set up? And they just reshuffle these characters.
Mm-hmm.
No one's really dead as long as their contracts still exist, because the MCU does not care about story anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, that the formula didn't bother me, honestly, until after Endgame, because I enjoyed following the clues of what is Feige doing here, and being like, oh, that's a clue there, that's a clue, and kind of, and I thought the casting was always so strong in all the, pretty much. They've had a few misses, but for the most part, the casting, they really nail the casting in the MCU. And so I was engaged enough. I mean, there were some I liked, some I didn't like, but for the most part, I really liked that about how it seemed like they had this tight control over the story. And so, yeah, it was formula, but like, you could be like, oh, look what Thor's doing there. Okay. That's going to tie back to, and it was fun to me, but because I just lost the ability to, I couldn't keep up with everything. And they lost that tightness, that control that was very appealing, I think.
Well, no, the thing is that I actually think, like, I'm not saying the formula was bad, because in the old days, when you put the formula on top of the story, or like story, when there's the story and the formula, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You can, and it becomes like the puzzle. But these days, there is only formula. To put the stories underneath that.
Yeah.
So when there's just the full formula, it stops being fun, and it becomes, and the formula's gotten bigger.
Yeah.
Part of it.
That's why I was going to say cluttered. It's gotten kind of
and
cluttered.
The story's a much smaller part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the fact that it's not, I understand wanting to tie your properties together, but it's not good that if you didn't watch one limited series on Disney Plus, that you missed a big emotional arc of Stephen Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Like an entire, like, if you haven't seen that, seen that versus the number of people who saw the movie.
Yeah.
If you don't bother putting some of that in the movie too, you were robbing the movie.
Yeah. It's true. Well, yeah. So your favorite movie last year was Everything Everywhere, right? That was your favorite. It was our pick for Utah Film Critics Association. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I certainly recommended it. I thought it was fun. It was creative. I enjoyed it. To me, I guess where I didn't 100% get on board is it felt a little try hard at times for me. I felt things like the rocks were just like, okay, now it's trying too hard to be quirky. It's trying too hard to be like existential. But I appreciated the attempt. I thought it was fun. I just didn't love it the way that you and others did.
See, I think if another director had done it, I might have think of try hard. But these are from the people who did an entire movie about like the relationship between a human and a corpse.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think that Everyone All at Once people are really just that weird by default.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, they were just like, let's put in all of the weird things that we're not normally allowed to put weird stuff in. And it was sort of them unhinged in a really delightful way.
Yeah. What do you think about the fact that the Oscars has been kind of awarding these indies lately with like Coda and then Everything Everywhere All at Once and Nomadland and these kind of small, quirky indie films that ever since Parasite, really.
Well, honestly, these days, I think those are really the only movies worth awarding.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood keeps, like you said, that Hollywood really only knows how to do these small, quirky indie films and the big IP mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm really excited about is when stuff like Coda and Everything Everywhere All at Once gets recognized, because Nomadland was a very good movie, but it's a very hard sell for casual movie watchers.
Yeah. Because
not a lot happens. And you try to explain, but it's about her inner journey, and their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
But on Coda, you could be like, it's a really adorable family comedy drama. And on Everywhere All at Once, you can say, it's the sci-fi epic everyone else keeps trying to do. And you can get them to go to the theaters, and you can get them to support these indie movies, and it brings them to an audience that I think needs it badly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can see that. I mean, some people were like, oh, it's overrated, it doesn't deserve to win Best Picture. I was fine with it winning Best Picture, even though it wasn't my like favorite of the year, obviously, because I just think it can only inspire more ambitious, crazy, out there, interesting films that will hopefully get greenlit with diverse casts. So I feel like the end result of Everything Everywhere All at Once, even though I think it was a good movie, I think the end result is only positive. Like what could be really negative taken out of it? I don't think.
But at the end, I want someone out there to see it and go, well, yes, but I want them to be able to make a movie about their yes, but.
Yeah.
Somebody came up with like a counter to some point of Everywhere All at Once and just was a completely different, equally out there movie. I would love that too.
I agree.
All of you.
Now, you have covered Sundance a bunch of times, as I have. What did you think of this last 2022 Sundance? Do you think it was a strong Sundance?
I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think we had, I don't think we had that movie that's going to go down in like the film annals like we do out of Sundance times. Had some really great stuff. Polite Society was my favorite.
Okay. That was fun
this year.
I thought it was a really strong group out of Sundance. Especially because I was not a big fan of the previous years. There were a lot of fan favorites that I didn't love. Cha-Cha Real Smooth. I didn't love a lot of the ones that other people really loved.
I didn't like Cha-Cha Real Smooth either.
Yeah. But it was kind of the year I felt like both at South by Southwest and Sundance, the year of the bittersweet romance kind of relationship story. And so you have things like You Hurt My Feelings, which I thought was hilarious. You have Past Lives, which it was interesting with Past Lives because when I was watching it, I was super uncomfortable the entire movie because I really liked her husband and I really didn't want her to cheat on her husband. So I'm like, but then once you get to the ending, I was like, oh, that was really good. Yeah. So I don't know.
In any of those movies with the past, when the current spouse is nice, you're just like, oh.
I know. Yeah. Please don't cheat on your husband. Please don't.
I get it, but
I also really liked Radical with, I don't know if you got to see that one with Eugenia Derbez playing the teacher.
Yeah. Oh, it made me cry though.
Yeah, it was so good. I mean, it was like your basic story we've seen a lot of times as the teacher, inspirational teacher.
But it really well.
Exactly. You did it really well. And it was so weird this year at Sundance. So many of the screenings were really late. I don't know if you felt this, but it's like starting at 9:30. I'm like, oh. And that was one of them. And I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. But it was worth it. I was engrossed. So yeah, I'm not sure why, if that had something to do with them working with the Megaplex, or I don't know why so many of the screenings were late. But it was brutal. But it was a big advantage that they were working with the Megaplex, because that was a million times better than the library.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It was so great.
Parking at the tower.
Yeah, the tower. Because those seats at the library are so uncomfortable. And so the recliners at the Gateway are a big upgrade.
A much nicer comparison.
Yes. Yeah. But I actually think my favorite at Sundance was Judy Blume Forever, was the documentary. That was so good.
There were some really good documentaries here.
Yeah, I just could not believe the letters that she got, that they showcased over the years, that like, I don't know, just these people writing her their deepest, darkest, concerns and troubles, and she's writing back to them. And I don't know, that just, everything with the letters really blew me away. And I loved Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I thought it was so good.
It was really well done. And one of the reasons why I think it was so good is because it wasn't like, let's re-envision this movie. Let's reimagine this movie. Let's make this fun to modern audiences. It was just, this is a classic story. Let's tell it as well as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I really appreciated the fact that this was a well-rounded, nuanced teenage character with like a defined voice. Because I don't know about you, but I absolutely hated The Whale last year. I thought it was terrible. And especially the teenage daughter was just a monster, and not in an interesting way, in my opinion. Like, nobody is that cold and cruel. And I think the only thing that makes sense is if this is her serial killer origin story, because it was so, I mean, I don't know. I just couldn't stand it. And I'm so tired of that. Like, yeah, teenagers, it's a hard time. I remember it being a hard time, but they have sweet moments too. They're not monsters.
But that's the thing, is that's why I think it really captured the spirit of Judy.
Yeah.
The reason why she's so iconic, and why I think so many people wrote those letters where they felt safe just pouring out their hearts, is she was always really good at capturing the full range of messy complexity of young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if there's been anyone better.
Yeah.
Today. Which is
she wasn't somebody that I read growing up. I don't know why, but then I went and read, before the movie, I read the book just because it's a quick audiobook listen. And I was just like, this is special. No wonder she basically invented young adult fiction. Yeah. Do you have any other highlights from this year so far that you really enjoyed?
I really liked Still, which was also from Sundance.
From Michael J. Fox. Yeah. I haven't seen that actually yet.
It's not really a traditional documentary. It's more like a candid discussion with.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the things I like is Michael J. Fox is genuinely candid. He's like, I'm gonna let it all out. And two, the editing is just killer, because what they did, because he's been working so long.
Mm-hmm.
Clips from all of the stuff he's done before, combine them with some background shots and behind the scenes, So they've sort of created actual scenes from the time periods he's talking about. So it looks like you're watching a movie of his life because so much of his life has been spent on screen. And that's just, so in addition to in addition to the look at Michael J. Fox, the way they presented it was just different, but also really engaging.
Yeah, I need to see that. That's been on my list. What do you think of this sort of year of seeing how things were invented movies? How do you feel about that?
I understand intellectually why it's happening, because somebody desperate for plots is going, oh, look, it's a hero story conveniently packaged. We can maybe even get a sponsorship. But I'm already tired and it's not even the middle of the year yet.
Yeah, I mean, it is really random how Hollywood does this, you know, that we've got Tetris, we got Air, we got Flamin' Hot, Blackberry. I haven't seen Blackberry yet, but I heard that's the best of the group.
Well, part of the reason from what I've heard about Blackberry is part of the reason why it's better is it's also kind of making fun of
I heard that.
And we're already ready for people to make fun of it.
Yeah.
Please, parodies, come, we need you.
Yeah.
They can stop at any time. Some of them have been better than others, but I'm like, it could be cool about this. And that's it. We're fine.
Yeah. Like I've enjoyed them to various degrees, I have to say. But yeah, it was kind of fun at South by Southwest. They did the Tetris screening, and ours was the second one. So they came up at the beginning and they were like, there's no panel after. And I'm like, okay. And then they were like, surprise, we have Alexei and Hank, the real Alexei and Hank are here. And so that overall, I thought it was just an okay movie, but that was fun. I must admit, that was fun.
Oh, I totally get that.
Yeah. Yes. One interesting one, I'd be curious to see what people think of it, that was out of Sundance, was Flora and Son. I love John Carney. I'm a huge fan of his. And this is like his COVID movie. The whole thing is this relationship between Joseph Gordon-Levitt and this woman in Ireland, but it's all through Zoom. So the whole thing feels very COVID-y. I don't think it's as strong musically as his other movies, but maybe it's just because I'm not as into hip hop, you know, and there's a bit of that. But I thought overall it was a sweet movie, and I'm very curious to see what people will think about it.
I unfortunately missed that one, so I'm actually quite excited to see it.
Yeah, I love Sing Street. That's one of my favorite movies.
Me too. That's honestly one of my Sundance like all-time favorites.
Yeah, it was so good. Oh, and it's just so sad that it got kind of swept up in the whole. It was one of the last Harvey Weinstein movies, and so that's the reason why it didn't get the push awards wise, and also
but
box office wise, it deserved it. And you know they're doing a Broadway musical of it.
I didn't. That is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it wasn't even nominated for song is absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there are award season victims of our stories, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a La La Land hater. I'm not, but if those songs deserve to get nominated, then so did Sing Street.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. Yeah. So as far as for me this year, like it's just been an interesting year. As far as some other ones that I've enjoyed, I actually thought The Covenant was really good. That one I'd say is a little underrated. I thought it was a very like compelling. I was invested in like what was going to happen.
Complicated feelings about The Covenant. It did what it wanted to do well. And I get why it wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one, I do think that Guy Ritchie's inability to do normal dialogue did hamper the movie some.
Mm.
But also, I think this is one of those ones where the marketing maybe sent it to slightly the wrong audience.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Mm-hmm.
Because until I researched, I just assumed that they went, oh, this is a story that happened. They're just retelling it. But one of the things I really liked most about The Covenant is it was never a story that happened, because we were never, no one watched out for the translators. And
yeah.
so I think that if that fact had come out more people who just dismissed it as just another everyone, the military is awesome story, would have gone out to see it. And I think those people, and especially if they more emphasized that this is what should have happened, I think those people would have appreciated it too. Yeah. And I think they missed it.
Yeah, I do. I think it should have gotten the same kind of audience that American Sniper or that kind of movie got. But the other one that I loved I wouldn't say I love The Covenant, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I really love Suzume. I'm a huge Makoto Shinkai fan. And it's a little messier than some of his other films as far as the story, but I still overall just couldn't believe how much emotion he brought for this girl in a chair.
See, I really like that too.
Yeah, it was really good. I ended up liking The Little Mermaid more than I thought I would, because I thought it looked absolutely terrible. But it was watchable.
The thing is I have very complicated and mostly negative views of the whole live action remake thing. And because the Beauty and the Beast one was just bad.
It was so bad.
Time they stuck in new stuff, it messed up the original story. It contradicted themes, and you're just stop it.
And she couldn't sing. At least Halle Bailey has an incredible voice. Her singing voice is absolutely stunning.
In some ways, The Little Mermaid one is actually my favorite of the remakes, because it's the first one I really feel justified its existence.
Yeah.
Because
and I thought her and the guy had such chemistry.
That's the thing. The other ones, they were just cash grab knockoffs. But here, I really felt like somebody really loved the movie as a child, but wished they could have done some things with Prince Eric and Ariel.
Yeah.
And, they wished Prince Eric would have reacted differently to the thing. And there's honestly been a long time fan thing about how Ariel is really an archaeologist, and she didn't become a human for a man. She became a human because she's really a human archaeologist.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And in this movie, you could tell that they really wanted to emphasize that, and they love of the other culture is part of what connected them. And so this is, I think, the first live action remake that can really be watched alongside the original.
Mm-hmm.
And they both sort of exist together. And that's not something I've really
seen. All the stuff that I thought was going to be terrible was terrible, but she was so good. And anything like, that was crazy to me that in the marketing, they just didn't completely sell it on Ariel and Eric. Like, they were so good together. They had such chemistry. Their story worked. Like, they shouldn't have had any of the nighttime shots. They all looked terrible out of context and in context.
And they should not have shown any of the CGI animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
they should have just been focusing on those two. I'm like, how can they not see that? Like, this seems so obvious to me. And
it was by far the best part of the movie.
Yeah, no question. No question. Oh, anyway. Well, and the other one that it's really raunchy, so it's not for everybody, but have you gotten to see Joyride yet?
No.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, you'll love it. It's very hard R, but I laughed my butt off. What's that?
Raunchy comedies too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go, we like to always say, what is an unpopular opinion? And it sounds like Endgame might be your unpopular opinion from what you were saying.
I still get crazy eyes when I'm talking about Endgame.
I mean, talking about superhero movies is just like the worst these days, and I dread it. I've gotten better over the years after what happened with me and Shazam, where I got death threats and everything. So now I just I just posted my Flash review and I don't have any comments on it. I don't respond to anything because it's the worst. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, especially in realms like with like superhero fans, people are like, you either agree with me or
it's a religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and see, on the Endgame thing, I'm coming from deep, like, I've been a comic book fan for years and years and years, Marvel. Yeah. But this thing, just one part of it, I won't go into any of the things that give me crazy eyes. Some of the worst parts of the MCU was them shoving characters who had different arcs and different personalities and different interactions into comic book storylines that did not fit and had not been built up properly. And I don't, at this point, stop giving me the checkpoints. Give me the stories you had started to tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And honestly, I wish they had killed Cap in Endgame because I feel they ruined his character. I would have preferred him dead.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I am going to go crazy.
Yeah. No. I
about Endgame.
I don't agree, but I understand the perspective, the point of view.
Also, social media influencer Hulk, I almost hate more.
Yeah, that was a weird art. Like, pretty much everything from Age of Ultron on with Hulk was strange.
The Hulk in Avengers is not only the best Bruce Banner I have ever seen, and captured the whole concept of Bruce Banner so beautifully. And then they were like, you know what? We're never doing that again. Yeah. We showed you what could be, and now we're going to snatch it away from you and you for the rest of your lives. Yeah. Good luck with that.
I just was so annoyed. The thing that annoyed me, I guess, the most with I loved Endgame. I was totally on board with it, but I thought the whole Gamora Star-Lord part was so cringe. I hated that.
Well, the thing is, I love Gamora and Star-Lord. One, the fact that they even tried to pretend that what Thanos felt for her was love. Crazy eyes topic. Yeah. Two, I love James Gunn, but I don't know where the planning went wrong, because their entire romance happened off screen to kill her. And I'm like, why did you not set aside a movie?
Well, well, yeah, no, it was bad. That was bad. But our last question we like to ask is, what is something that you've written or done that you think I'm proud of that? That was a well-written, interesting review, or, or something that you made. What do you think?
I kind of like to shift that sideways because I don't get desperately attached to individual reviews. Because I mean, I try to put the same amount of work into all my reviews. I'm really proud of is any moment that I can take a movie that didn't get as much attention or didn't get as big of a marketing budget and just shill the crap out of it.
Yeah. Feels so good. Like I did that. I felt like I did that with Marcel the Shell last year, and it feels good to at least get a few people to see it.
Yes, anytime. I mean, if I can get one more person to see this thing. Otherwise, Marcel, Polite Society, the outfit, was it the same?
Oh, the outfit was so good. Yeah, with you there. That was so underrated.
Well, that's it. And in review, because they probably been getting it from there. And like I said, if I got one person to see the outfit, or Marcel, or Polite Society, wouldn't have otherwise. I am so proud of that.
Yeah. Well, one that recently that I'm proud of, I actually was pretty proud of my Little Mermaid review because I had been really tough on the trailers. I thought they looked absolutely terrible, all the marketing. And so everybody was expecting me to come out and say how terrible it was. So I ended up saying the title of my review was Disney's Still the Worst, but this movie's actually pretty good. And I think it was a well-written defense and explanation of kind of my journey with the movie. So I was proud of that. And I try my best to have an authentic, honest point of view. If somebody wants to know what I think of a trailer, and if I think it looks terrible, I'm going to say it looks terrible. And but then I'm going to go and sit in the movie and give my honest opinion of what I think. And it's hard sometimes to do that, to stay authentic, but I think it's really important because at least for me, I feel like I can spot phoniness in a critic very quickly, and I'm just not interested in that person's point of view.
And see, what I try to do is I try to be like that one movie friend you have.
Yeah.
And I try in the review to say, this is the experience of watching the movie. So that even if your perspective is different than mine, you still get enough of a sense of what watching the movie was like that you could go, well, she didn't like this, but that's exactly my jam. I need to go see this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming on, talking with us. This was so much fun. Yeah, it was a blast. And if people want to read your reviews, follow you on social media, how can they do that?
My reviews are in the Vale Daily and Davis Journal, and I'm Wardell Writer on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter very much these days because of Musk. But just Google Jennifer Wardell, 2 N's and 2 F's. I am very Googleable because of how I spell my first name.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to hang out and talk about stuff.
Very good. Very good. Well, yeah, let us know what you think about all the different things that we talked about. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and put it in the comment section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that you're following the podcast and check out Hallmarkies Podcast. I've got a lot of good content over there as well. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have a Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and the merch store where you can get Female Film Critics Panel logo shirts, which are super cool, I think. And so check that out. And thanks so much, Jennifer. This was a blast, and we'll see you in a couple hours.
See you, yes.